Morning, friends. I just woke up and I actually went for a really nice walk, and I forgot to record it, so there is no footage of that to start my day. It's a glorious day. Yeah, I got my heart pumping, and now I'm ready to hunker down and do some lesson planning for the morning. I especially want to get started on the history lectures that will accompany our readings in medieval literature for September. That's on my to-do list for the morning. In the afternoon, I need to do some research for my professor. So I work part-time as a research assistant for a professor of history, and he is writing a book on secularization, sacred social order, religion, all these things. It's very, very fascinating stuff, and I've been helping him do the background research and do some editing. I've been contributing wherever it's needed since this last September. So I need to put in a few more hours of work for him this afternoon, and then I have a meeting with him at 3:30, I believe. So I'm going to try to structure my day: morning lesson planning, and afternoon research and meetings. And hopefully I can fit a few walks in there. Many cups of coffee will be drunk, and let's just see how today goes. Oh no! These are the books that I need to work through for my grade 8 humanities lessons for the coming year. This isn't even the grade 9 and 10 stuff. There will be just as much stuff for those grades, and that will be ancient literature. This is mostly medieval with some complementary 20th century texts like the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers. But yeah, I need to design a course around these books and decide how much of each book to read, decide what kind of projects to come up with, and I have to do all the historical research for the backgrounds of all of these books as context for our reading. Anyways, I know I'm not looking very bookish today. Some days you just gotta wear an NHL shirt and leggings. Yeah. But I am actually very, very excited to start tackling these, to start designing a course around these, and to teach these great books in September. Alright, so it's noon. I've been working on this for hours. Essentially what I've done is I've mapped out the first week and a half only of school, of this course specifically. So I have gone through my teacher's textbooks. I've determined which excerpts we're going to be reading. I've compiled the historical context for the books that we'll be reading and the world that we'll be living in, which is the world of the early Christian church, the world of the Roman Empire in the first 2/3 centuries or so. I've been writing down discussion questions as I've gone through the material that I hope to discuss with my students. I've come up with different assignment ideas. I've thought a lot about structure of the classes as I lead them. I think I'm just going to show you what I've done because it'll be a little bit easier to explain it that way. So here we have Semester 1, Weeks 1 to 2, The Church History by Eusebius and The Hobbit. Those are the two texts we're going to be studying. So I've compiled context of the early church in the Roman Empire. I've written a short biography of Eusebius. And then we get into the primary text, The Church History. I have a little intro, details about the character, summary, setting, and worldview of the text. So just a good introduction to Eusebius's church history. On the side here, I've started noting excerpts from each book. There's 10 books total. I only have up to 5 done that I hope to read aloud with my students. I've started thinking of discussion questions to go along with them. And then here I've mapped out the first 2 weeks into different sessions, which books we're going to read on each day. There's still a lot to be done in figuring out where and when I'm going to be incorporating historical details versus just reading the texts, etc. And then I haven't even touched The Hobbit yet, so our primary text is Eusebius's church history, and then our secondary text is The Hobbit. So we're going to be reading The Hobbit alongside the church history. So I'm super familiar with The Hobbit, but I need to figure out a way to connect it to the church history. And I think that is going to be a little bit tricky, and I'm going to have to give that a lot of thought. There is a reason why we're reading it alongside this text. So I need to figure that out and figure out how to allow my students to figure that out. I need a break from my computer, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head out and go for a walk. Walking helps me think, helps me clear my head. So I'm going to try to think about the church history and The Hobbit and how to connect them and how to study them together as I walk. So hopefully when I sit down again to tackle this lesson planning, I have some more ideas and some more direction of where to go. Well, that actually did work quite well. I thought of how and when I want to intro The Hobbit, how I want to periodically check in on students' progress, and yeah, a bit on how I'm going to get them to work with it in the context of Eusebius's histories. I've decided it's time to look the part of a history teacher a little bit more. Just wanted to show you guys my pins. This is a pin of a Greek urn that I got at the British Museum when I was in London a few summers ago. And this is a pin from Oxford University that I got in Oxford 2 summers ago. Man, I simply cannot wait to visit the UK again. It's 1:15. I've decided that instead of getting started on my research for my professor right now, I'm going to do something else until 2:30, and that's when I'm going to start my research for him. So a project that I've been working on in my spare time is I've been writing a family history for my dad's side of the family. A few weeks ago, my great-grandmother passed away. She's my dad's Oma, so my dad's grandmother, and she was in her 99th year. She was 98 and a half. I've never known life without her, so this has been a big loss, but my Oma and Opa, so my grandparents, have been taking care of her for 18 years. She lived in a basement apartment in their big farmhouse. They live on an apple orchard, and so she's just always been part of the scenery there at the orchard and at Oma and Opa's house, and I grew up going there several times a week. Anyways, so it is my grandparents, my Oma and Opa's 50th wedding anniversary this summer, in less than a month, in July. And so I've decided that I'm going to have a first draft of our family history written up for them as an anniversary present. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, I did make a video a long time ago, last summer, that kind of chronicled the start of this project. So I went and I interviewed my Opa and Oma. I asked them all kinds of questions about their parents, who immigrated from Holland after the Second World War, what the immigration process was like, what it was like coming to Canada and starting a new life. And I did actually write up most of that interview into about 7 chapters of the family history. And so this past week, since my great-grandmother passed away, I've been going through that again. I've been adding, I've been tweaking, and I've been continuing my writing of this history. I actually made up a whole document and sent it to all my extended relatives, so my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, who grew up very similar to me, grew up very close to my Oma and Opa, and I'm trying to get them to share stories and memories of them and of life at the apple orchard, which has always been the place that brought us all together. So I'm going to check this document and see if anybody's added anything yet, And if not, I'm going to add some of my own stories and memories, and hopefully within a few weeks there'll be more content to work with to finish this family history off. And then I hope to present them just a first draft. Hopefully Oma and Opa will read through it and give me feedback. Let me know if anything's inaccurate, if I'm missing anything, if there's any anecdotes or stories they'd like to add here and there. And then after that, I'm going to make the edits. And then I'm actually going to publish it in a book format so that I can give my Oma and Opa an actual book of their history and the history of their parents. I'm really excited to get to that point and to see what this is going to look like. But for now, I'm still doing the research. I'm still crafting the narrative. And so I'm going to work on that for the next hour and a bit. Some of these memories are actually so good. Like the fact that my Oma started giving me coffee when I was like 8 years old, and I've been hooked ever since. That was always the thing. You went to Oma's house, you were offered coffee, and it was such a treat. And my mom would be like, she wouldn't let me drink it at home. But because I went to Oma so often, I actually got a fair amount of coffee, and eventually I was able to convince my mom to let me drink it at home too. Time for a salsa break. Well, I made supper for my husband and I, and we only had 1 hour together, which was very sad because he is headed out on a camp trip with a friend. Actually, a canoe trip. He's going to be canoeing on the French River for about 3 days, so I won't see him for 3 days, which makes me very sad because on a day like today where I was at home all day doing my research, my writing, working, I get very lonely. By like mid-afternoon, I'm just like, I'm dying to spend some quality time with somebody. And I was gonna go see my Oma and Opa tonight and do a little bit more interviewing and talking to them for the book that I'm writing, but they had plans, so that isn't happening. I've texted all my close friends in the area and nobody is available. It isn't the weekend, it is a school night, and I have some friends who are teachers and who lesson prep the night before, and they're just busy. So anyways, I'm taking myself out on a date. I'm going to go to Paris and find a lovely spot and do some reading and writing to end the day. In a high-vaulted, narrow Gothic room, Faust sitting restlessly at his desk. Well, that's philosophy I've read, and law and medicine, and I fear theology too, from A to Z, hard studies all that have cost me dear. And so I sit, poor silly man, no wiser now than when I began. They call me professor and doctor, forsooth, for misleading many an innocent youth, these last 10 years now, I suppose, pulling them to and fro by the nose. And I see all our search for knowledge is vain, and this burns my heart with bitter pain. I've more sense, to be sure, than the learned fools, the masters and pastors, the scribes from the schools. No scruples to plague me, no irksome doubt, no hellfire or devil to worry about. Yet I take no pleasure in anything now, for I know nothing. I wonder how I can still keep up the pretense of teaching, or bettering mankind with my empty preaching. Can I even boast any worldly success? What fame or riches do I possess? No dog would put up with such an existence. And so I am seeking magic's assistance, calling on spirits and their might to show me many a secret sight, to relieve me of the wretched task of telling things I ought rather to ask.